All righty. All right, so we are back on in 1.4, and I think we're ready for letter J.
Yeah.
So we did a couple of these last time, and the idea hasn't changed a bit, but some of you may have forgotten what we did. So we have H of F of -1. So when we read this, Eli, when we read this, we say H of F of -1. So if you want to read it, that's how you say it. H of F of -1. So who remembers, let me write my functions down again. These are just these random functions I made up, remember? Nothing special about them. Who remembers the order that I do things when the problem looks like this right here? What do I start by doing? I plug in -1 into F, right? So this says F of -1. That's the first thing I do right here. F of -1. So F of -1 will be -1 plus 2, which is 1. Remember, when you evaluate a function, you plug in whatever the number is in place of x. Now, what do I do with this 1 that I got? This turned out to be 1. So what do I do with it now? I don't multiply it by h, I plug it into h. So h of 1 is -2 times 1 plus 5, which is 3, and that's the answer to the problem. When you evaluate a function, you take out the x and put in that number. All right, that's J. Okay, K. K says F of G of H of 1. Remember, that is not a 0, that is not a time sign. That's a little open circle, little tiny open circle, and it means the same thing as the brackets and parentheses mean. So F of G of H of 1. That's how you read that. So where do we start? Put 1 into H. This is where we start, right here. So we're going to find H of 1. We always start closest with the letter that's closest to the number, right? So H of 1. Is it Brennan? H of 1, yeah. So I'm going to plug 1 into H. What do I get when I plug 1 in for the X here? What do I get? 3. So this part is 3. So now what happens to the 3? It goes into G. So G of 3. All right, so what's G of 3? 9. 3 squared. Take out the X, put in a 3 into the G. So it's 9. All right, so now I'm taking care of this part. What's next? Put 9 into the F function. So plugging in 9 would give me 11. And that is the answer to the problem. Mrs. Ford, how do you know that's the answer? I'm out of letters, right? I keep going as long as I need to, but now I'm out of letters. So that's the answer. That's where I stop. What is different? Look at L. What is different about that one? Well, okay, so it's using the other notation. It's not using what we sometimes call the fog notation, right? It's not using that. It's using the brackets. What else is different? There's no number. That actually makes it easier. Because do you already know what G of X is? G of X is x squared. I mean, it says it right here. G of x is x squared. So now we're going to take that answer and we're going to plug it in to f. Remember, the answer that you get goes into the next function. So since I got x squared, that's going to go into f. That means every time you see an x, you're going to put in an x squared. So what is f of x squared? X squared plus 2. This one's kind of the same thing. Where do I start? What's the first thing I do? Do I figure out what f of x is? But I don't need to figure it out. I know. What's f of x? X plus 2. This right here is x plus 2. This is x plus 2. So now my problem says find h of x plus 2. Now what does that mean? H of anything means take out the x and put in whatever you're doing. So this is going to be negative 2 x plus 2 plus 5. So negative 2x minus 4 plus 5. I did my distributive. Now I'll collect like terms. Did you get negative 2x plus 1? Okay. I think you got a little room in the margin or whatever. Would you do one more of those for me? Would you do h of f of x? Try that one on your own. See if you can, using these same functions here, can you do h of f of x? Oh wait, is that what I just did?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm an idiot. All right. How about f of h of x? There we go, try it out. Same functions, but do it in a different order now. Let's talk about some different answers that you got. Anybody have an answer yet? What you got? Everyone?
Negative 2x plus 7.
What?
Negative 2x plus 7.
Negative 2x plus 7 is one answer. Okay, anybody have a different answer? Did you get that same answer? What did you get? Oh, well, let's check it. I'm going to start with inside right here. I start with h of x, which is negative 2x plus 5. So this right here is negative 2x plus 5. So see how it says f of negative 2x plus 5? So f of negative 2x plus 5 means go to the f function, and every time you see an x, put this in. So negative 2x plus 5 plus 2. I think he's right. Negative 2x plus 7 is the right answer. I can remember, actually, it's so weird. I can remember learning all this function stuff for the first time when I was in high school with my teacher, Mr. Armstrong, and it was a little disconcerting to me. So if you're confused by it, just come in during office hours and a few problems, we'll have it all sorted out. Okay, we have one more little section to do. We need to talk about implicit functions now. Implicit functions. if I said to you, let's graph this on our calculator, what would be a problem that we would have?
We don't have anything y doesn't equal something.
Stop right there. If you're gonna graph something on your calculator, it has to be y equals. That is the only way your calculator will graph. I told you that before, that if you want to graph something, you can't just type it in. You have to do it y equals. So if you want to graph this, the only way to do it is to get this equation rearranged so it's y equals. So what would I have to do that? Giovanni? Now, let's talk about that for a second, because that is one of those commandments in mathematics. We cannot break that commandment, but people try it all the time. Would you agree, Giovanni, that 3 squared plus 4 squared is 5 squared? Would you agree with that statement?
What did you say? Sorry.
Yeah, would you agree this is true? That's 9 plus 16, and that's 25, right? Now, if I take the square root of each piece, it would say 3 plus 4 equals 5. Is that true? You cannot take the square root of individual pieces. Now, you can take the square root of the whole side as a unit, but you can't do the individual pieces. Okay? So, how about if we get the y by itself? It's y squared. Then I can do this, right? The square root of y squared is y. This you cannot do individually, so it stays like this. There's nothing, that does not simplify. But wait, we forgot something. When we take the square root of those sides, what do we always have to remember? When you do this on both sides of an equation, you have to remember plus or minus. So in other words, there are going to be 2 implicit equations. Y equals the positive square root, and y equals the negative square root. You are going to write those separately. I'm going to write those 2 separately. On the test, I actually have 2 answer blanks drawn, because you're going to have your positive square root as an equation and your negative square root as an equation. All right, let's try it. Get our calculators out, run y equals, clear out anything that's in there. We're going to type square root 4 minus x squared. That's y1. And then y2 is going to be negative, use your negative key, negative square root 4 minus x squared. And then hit graph. Now I don't know how your window's set. If you're not really seeing anything, go ahead and zoom 6. That'll be a standard window. Did you get something that looked kind of like this? It graphed in 2 pieces. Yeah? This is actually a circle. This is the top half of the circle, and this is the bottom half of the circle, the positive and the negative. Your calculator won't graph it all at once, because is that a function? And your calculator only does functions. Okay? Now, I just told you it was a circle. Does yours look very circular? It kind of looks like an ellipse or something, right? So do one more thing for me. Go to zoom and go down to zoom square, number 5. Now does it look more like a circle? Yes. So I'm going to talk about this, and I'm not going to talk about it again, but for some reason when they built your calculator, they built it as a rectangle. The screen is a rectangle. They should have built it as a square, but they built it as a rectangle. So when you use a standard window, and you come over negative 10, 10, and negative 10, 10. Does it make sense to you that these hash marks, these 10 hash marks, are more spread out than these 10 hash marks? Because there's more length this way than there is this way. So everything you've ever drawn in your life on your calculator has been pulled this way because of the phenomenon of the shape of the screen. So whenever you want to get a really good picture, hit zoom square. And that will change the dimensions so that your picture is a square, or it's the way it's supposed to be. Okay? All right. So what is the answer to the question, Mrs. Ford? Find the implicit functions. Here they are. Why are they called implicit functions? Well, the original equation is not a function, it's a circle. Circles don't pass the vertical line test. But if you only graph this equation, you get the top half of the circle. Is that a function?
Yeah.
And then if you only graph the bottom, it's a function. So these are the two little functions that go together to give you your picture. These are the implicit functions, the implied functions. All right, let's try the next one. What do we do to find the implicit functions for this problem? Come on, take your clue from the last problem. What do we have to do? Get y by itself. So I'm going to subtract that 2x. And then I am going to square root. Remembering that when I square root y squared, I get y. And this side has to be plus or minus. So one of my equations is right there. And the other equation is right here. Right? Now let's see what shape we get when we graph those two. We're going to put them both in. Square root 8 minus 2x. Negative, and make sure you're using the negative button. Square root 8 minus 2x. Did it graph in two pieces again?
Yeah.
Of course it did, because you're putting in two different functions. So I got a sideways parabola, did you? Is the whole picture a function?
No.
The whole picture? No, but your calculator was able to graph it because this is the top half, and it is a function, and then it graphed the bottom half, and it is a function. So when it did them together, you got something that wasn't a function, but it graphed them individually, right? All right, let's finish it up. How about C? We're finding the implicit functions. Eli, wake up. Alice, put your head up, sweetheart. Are you on painkillers that are making you dopey? Okay, keep your head up, please. Okay, so what do we do here? Our job is to find the implicit functions. What do we do?
Get y by itself.
So y squared equals 6 minus 3x squared. And then we'll square root. There's two answer blanks. So we'll say y equals the square root of 6 minus 3x squared. And then we'll say y equals negative the square root of 6 minus 3x squared. Here we go. I already know what this is going to look like, and I'm typing it in. You all should be typing this in. Now, I am not sure why. Did your two pieces not really connect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They should have, I'm not sure why they don't, there's something in the calculator that doesn't make that happen, I'm just not smart enough, I don't know why. You can assume they connect, because this picture is what we call an ellipse. This is not a circle, this is an ellipse. So it is like an H, or not really an H shape, an oval shape. And then the last one. You know, be careful here. I might do it this way. You don't have to, but does that make sense to you? If you move the X, you're gonna have to also move a negative. So I didn't do that, I just went ahead and moved the 4y over here and the 16 over here. Divide by 4. And take the square root. So my implicit functions are y equals the square root of x minus 16 over 4 and the negative square root of x minus 16 over 4. If you have, I don't know about the newer calculators, but I know if you have an older calculator, you need to close that parenthesis. So what's going to happen is, as soon as you hit your square root sign, it's going to put parentheses. You're going to have to put in another parentheses, x minus 16, and then divided by 4. That's how you're going to have to type it in. Both times. This is a hard one to type in. Right, I'm playing with my window because I didn't even get a picture. Did you? So I'm playing with it a little bit to see what happens.
So,
There, I got it. Okay, so the window I'm going to need to use. Let's try that. So change your window. There we go. Change your window to these numbers and you'll see the picture. For x min, I have 10. For x max, I have 30. For y min, I have negative 5. And for y max, I have 5. So go to window, change it to those numbers and hit graph. And you should see a parabola opening sideways like this. Now, this is Ford. How did you know to use that window? I didn't. What did I do? When I pressed graph, and I didn't see a picture, then I know my window's not big enough. So I just started playing around, randomly playing around, until I found some numbers, and there are lots of combinations you could use, but I need to find some numbers that show me a picture. And that's just messing around with the window. Alright, so our two implicit functions, and that was our job. Our job wasn't really to graph them, we're just doing that for practice. But our two implicit functions are right here. Okay? So now I'm going to hand out a couple of things. I'm going to hand out our next set of practice tests. And I did these a little differently. I don't know if I'll do it this way again. But there's 3 practice tests here. But the first 2, I didn't do in test format. So the first 2, you're going to have to do on other paper. The third one, I did in test format. I was trying to save paper, but I'm not sure it was the best decision I've ever made. So when it's time to do these, and it isn't time to do them yet, we'll start on them next time. You'll need a piece of paper to actually do these on, because I didn't leave enough workspace. For the third one, I did. So the third one is formatting of the test, okay? But for the time being, put those away. Here come our practice BFF quizzes. So this is what we're going to work on right now.
Are you going to barbecue yet? Oh, read yours.
Okay. This is what we're working on right now. So, what I would like you to do, I've got some other papers I want you to hand back. Some homeworks and quizzes and things. So while I am handing those back, I would like you to be working on this BFF practice sheet. So you will notice all the quizzes, all the practices, and the quiz you take are formatted just like this.
Bless you.
So there are 3 questions that say draw the picture. There are 3 questions that say write the name. And there are 3 questions that say write the equation. And then the tricky one is the last question. Because the last question says, okay, you've used 9 of them. What are the 3 leftovers? What are the 3 that you haven't used? All right? So go ahead and use your note cards. Go ahead and use note cards. Yeah. Go ahead and use your note cards, guys, and see how far you can get with this first practice quiz. And in the meantime, I will pull out some papers. And then we will we shouldn't be talking about anything except our BFFs. I don't care if you're talking with each other, sharing ideas, but let's see what we can do with these problems. in Sandra and
Nikki Turner, more like with the crazy.
Jacob and Ray. All right, that's, you guys' pile is empty, so I do have one homework over there with your name on it. I'm not sure whose that is, but everything else you guys now have. So, how have we done on our first practice quiz? Let's run down through the answers and see what you came up with.
How much is the extra credit, like the birthday bonuses worth? Two.
All right.
So is this like a 9 point?
All right, so we'll talk about your quizzes in a minute, but let's get through this practice thing first. Sketch the indicated curve. So the first one is which function? Which function are we sketching?
Exponential?
The exponential. So the exponential function, you should have a picture drawn that looks like this. You have this shape drawn? All right, what about the next one?
Absolute value.
Which is what shape?
V.
A V from the origin, perfect. And the third one on this practice quiz is this one, which is the square root function, which looks like that, right? Got it graphed? All right, write the name of the function.
Logistic.
So A is the logistic function. This is number 2. How about B? Greatest integer. And how about number 3? Or C? Squared. Now kids, pay attention to the directions. It said write the name of the function. So that's what I did. I wrote the name of the functions, not the equation. For 3, I'm going to write the equation. This is the first practice quiz. So what equation do I have for A? Y equals X. Is that your linear function or your identity? How about B?
ln x, y.
Y equals ln x. Now notice it does say equation. So your answer should be an equals in there. So y equals x, y equals ln x, and be careful, what about the last one? That's your cosine, exactly. How do I know it's not a sine? It doesn't go through the origin. Now, look at all of the functions that you've used so far. You've used 9 of them. There are 3 more that you haven't used. Now, when we write them, you can draw them, put the name or put the equation. I don't care. The 3 functions that haven't been used are down here. What are they?
Cubing.
Cubing,
Sine.
sine,
And reciprocal.
reciprocal. Very, very good. This is exactly what your quiz is gonna look like. All right, let's turn it over and look at the back. This is BFF practice number 2. They're all kind of randomly labeled, but BFF practice number 2. All right, so part 1. We are sketching. All right. So anybody know what A looks like? What is A? No, it's not the greatest integer. Logistic. Logistic. This is logistic. Make sure your note card has that crazy equation matched up with the logistic. So what does the logistic look like? Asymptote, asymptote, and squiggly line. Right? All right. Well, B is clearly the cosine. So the cosine goes up and down, right? But you gotta start it up here. So the up and down starts up here like this. Cosine starts up here. Y equals X. What does that one look? Y equals 1 over X. I mean, what does that one look like? Be careful. That's the two-parter. That's the two-parter. Is this the only one that's in 2 parts? I'm trying to think. Well, except for greatest integer, which is in a bunch of parts. I think that's the only 2-part function.
Yeah.
That's the reciprocal function. Okay. Now what about the names? Write the name. What's A? Identity, or some of you say linear, and that's fine. Doesn't matter to me which one you use. Perfect. What about B? Square root. So square root. And what about C? Greatest integer. Now write the equation. Okay. Now, I want you to look at 2b, which you said was square root, and it's correct, and 3a. Sometimes we get those confused. Do you see the difference? 2a, or 2b, I mean 2b literally starts at the origin and goes out. That's the square root. What is 3a?
Exponential.
No.
Wait.
Natural
We're on
logarithm.
BFF practice number 2.
Natural log.
Yes, we're writing the equation. It's ln x. That's ln x. What's the equation for B?
Y equals absolute value of x.
Y equals absolute value x. That's your absolute value. Stan?
So are exponential and the natural logarithm, are those like opposite?
They're inverses of each other, yep. Yep. And what is C?
X cubed.
Y equals x cubed. All right, let's say that we sit down to take our quiz, and for some reason you can't remember this equation, but you know it's the cubing function. You get half credit if you at least indicate you know which function it is. So full credit, you have to write the equation. All right, so look at what we've done. Look at what we've used. The last ones are what we haven't used. So which of the 12 are not up here? Squaring, no parabola up here. So you can either write squaring, you can write y equals x squared, or you can draw the picture. I don't care. You don't have to do all 3. You want one of those.
Exponential.
Exponential. So again, you can write it out. Exponential. exponential, you can write y equals e to the x, or you can draw a picture of it
Sign.
and the sign. And if you choose to draw a picture of it, remember, you can write sign, you can write y equals sine x, or you can draw a picture. Make sure you're starting at the origin with your hills and valleys. Okay, now, next one is BFF practice F. Let's try it without our note cards. How many of these can you get right without your note cards? We're just practicing. Let's take about 3 minutes. Fill in what you can without your note cards. And then we'll get our note cards out and we'll see what we got.
Wait, what is?
We're on practice quiz F.
That's not right. Miss Ford, what's the B? Why is it in parentheses? Is that
Where you got
Bracket.
brackets for B?
That is one of.
That's one of the notations. That's one of your equations.
It's just not the one we see all the time.
Yeah, it may not be, there are 2 notations for it.
I think it's on
You don't have to use both of them, but you need to recognize both of them. Little hint, I hate it.
That's when they I guess, no.
All right, let's go ahead and get our note cards out. How far did you get? Did anybody get maybe half of it?
I need one more. I don't know
You got all but one?
What's 2A?
That's
I don't know-
awesome.
I don't know the name.
If you got all of them but one, that's great.
No, it's not.
All right, well, let's see what we got. What's this first one gonna look like? What's the picture for the first one?
Instead of double sided.
It's the 2-parter. That's the reciprocal function. It's in 2 parts. 1 over x is quadrant 1, quadrant 3. Did you decide what this next one was?
Greatest integer.
Greatest integer. Solid down at the origin, over and open. Solid, over and open. Solid, over and open. This is greatest integer function. The other way of writing it is that way. That's how your calculator does it. All right, what about C? What's that one?
Absolute value.
It's absolute value, so its picture is a V. Perfect. Anybody have any question about those 3? You're drawing the picture. Okay, now we're writing the name. What's A? Logistics. Remember, you don't have to spell perfectly, but I have to be able to tell what you mean. What's B?
Exponential.
Exponential. So again, I'm gonna say, if you recognize that picture and you know that it's y equals e to the x, but you can't remember the name, it's okay. Write this down and you'll get half credit. Okay? So don't just leave it blank. If you know something about it, write that down. Okay, what about C?
Cosine.
That's your cosine. And we're writing the equation, so it's, or are we writing the name? We're writing the name. So that's cosine x, just cosine. Cosine. Okay. Now we got the pictures and we're writing the equation. What's A?
Y equals X.
That's the identity, so we'll write y equals x. But if you forget the equation and you write write identity, you'll get half credit. All right, what's next?
Y equals X squared.
Y equals x squared. And what's last?
Ln X.
Ln x. Y equals ln x. Okay, so there's what we've used. What have we not used? Haven't done cubing. So I'm just writing cubing because that's what someone said. You can write the equation or draw the picture. But cubing somehow is in it. What else? Sine. I think we got, I thought we had the square root. We have the square root, but we don't have the square root. All right, so we know exactly what our quiz is going to look like. And the good news is there's 3 more that you can do and come in during office hours to check. We'll probably do 1 before we actually take our quiz to get warmed up, since I don't see you tomorrow. And then we'll do it, okay?
So this BFF quiz on Friday, and 1.1 is quiz.
That's gonna be a test, and we have to get through the practice work first, so it might be the end of next week, maybe. Okay, so I'm gonna come around, I haven't done this yet this year, but I want to do it today. I'm gonna come around, show me your graphing calculator, and turn it on, and show me that you've been graphing. Yes, perfect. If you were participating with the graphing calculator, you are going to get points today. Not extra credit, but it'll be, you know what I mean, in there. Were you doing it?
Yeah, I cleared it.
Were you doing it with me?
I kind of broke my graph.
Were you doing it with me, or were you messing around? You were doing it? You're doing it?
I cleared mine.
I broke my window.
Now, this time, I'm not gonna count it against you, so in other words, I'm not gonna give you a 0, but next time I will. We gotta have a calculator that works, so you type it in. Did you type anything that you said here? You were typing in with us? With me?
I only did one.
But you typed in. That was a very bad move. Loaning it to a friend. I know you tried to be nice, but it's not good.
I was messing with my window range and I can't open my graph.
When you can't read it. Yes, you do. The minimum has to be less. See, you can't have a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 8 or 10. That doesn't make any sense. Where's your calculator? All right, next time, guys, I do a calculator check, you're gonna get a 0 if you don't have it. All right, so make sure you've got it.